1,000 years of history with the Icelandic people. It's the country of Iceland and the little island, and it goes pre-settlement in Iceland to the settlement time in North America. So it starts here, if you recognize this little figure, Thor. And Thor was very important in the deities of the Icelandic people. He's holding his little hammer that you see, the one that creates thunder. So every time it thunders, you know that Thor is busy. So they lived basically on this island for 1,000 years in turf huts before they really started moving into sort of the 19th century sort of living. You took your wife and your husband and maybe the grandmother and grandfather came along and all your kids, you packed everything you owned into one of those trunks and moved across the ocean on a 5-week journey sometimes. This apparently is specifically an Icelandic immigrant ship. They came here in the fall of 1875. They came up the Red River, and at Lower Fort Garry they commissioned a steamboat called the Colville to bring them up here. They settled first right in the Gimli and the Icelandic River area. That was the area that they had been given for their colony. And they lived in these tents until they put together log huts like that. When they moved into the Icelandic River settlement area, there was a small band called the Sandy Bar Band. Sandy Bar is just to the towards the lake from Riverton, and they did make friends immediately with the leader of their band, whose name was John Ramsey. He did teach them quite a bit on how to, survive in the wilderness, how to do a little bit of trapping and hunting. John Ramsey's wife died in the smallpox epidemic, and he buried her at Sandy Bar. They decided if they were living here as a colony in a closed group, they had to have laws to govern themselves. So they wrote their own constitution. So they started off, they were trading with the Métis and the indigenous people. They eventually set up a shipping company on Lake Winnipeg, Lady of the Lake. This is something to do in the wintertime, and the men would carve things like that, and the women would do a lot of this sort of embroidery things. So this is the story of the typical pioneers and who lived where. But then the museum itself kind of focuses on the immigrant experience. And all of these stories, the storyboards tell a fairly good story.